Good morning. The House of Representatives will please come to order. Welcome, members, to the 10th day, midway of the 66th Wyoming Legislative Budget Session. We're pleased to have had Reverend Rick Veit here with us all week from St. Mark's Episcopal Church, and I'd ask him now to offer prayer with us. Reverend Veit.
It's been an honor to serve alongside all of you this week, and I'd like to offer a prayer or collect for those who influence public opinion. Let us pray. Almighty God, you proclaim your truth in every age by many voices. Direct in our time, we pray, those who speak where many listen and write what many read, that they may do their part in making the heart of this people wise, its mind sound, and its will righteous, to the honor and glory of your name and for the welfare of all people, especially those here in Wyoming. For it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Veit. We appreciate you so much. Thank you very much. Why don't you actually just walk down, pick one of the aisles, and we'll see you off going down one of those aisles if you'd like. So we'll do our roll call. Then we've got a couple of special events here. So roll call, members.
Convening roll, the 10th day, February 25th, 2021. Andrew. Baker. Banks. Bear. Blackburn. Excused. Brown. Burkhart. Burt. Clausen. Connolly. Crago. Duncan. Eklund. Air. Flitner. Fortner. Gray. Greer. Greer. Hallinan. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Jennings. Kenner. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson Dan. LeBeau. McGuire. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Oakley. Obermuller.
Here.
O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Paxton. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Romero Martinez. Roscoe. Schwartz. Sherwood.
Here.
Simpson. Summers. Stith. Stivar. Sweeney. Walters. Washit. Western. Wharf. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Yin. Zwanitzer. Mr. Speaker. Greer. Excused. Romero Martinez. Excused. Mr. Speaker, 57 present, 3 excused.
Thank you very much. So members, we'll just take a moment right now, and we have had 2 guests here with us. Actually, not guests, they've been diligent in carrying out duties on behalf of the House of Representatives. And as is tradition, on their last day, they have the opportunity to address the body and tell them the lessons they've learned, or ones they maybe wish they hadn't learned as they were here. But anyway, so I'd like to, we're going to offer Preston and Brian the opportunity to address the floor. So with that, privilege of the floor is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to say thank you all so much for this wonderful opportunity. I've really enjoyed being here the last few days. It's been fun in its own way. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to come here twice because I've learned different things from both times. The first time we were more busy with handouts and things, whereas this time we haven't had as much to do, so I've been able to focus and listen more to the process and listen to what you all are discussing and debating about, and I've definitely learned a lot from that. For the future, I'm planning on finishing high school and then serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. After that, I'm looking forward to pursuing a career in entrepreneurship and maybe someday getting involved in politics. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
Okay. I didn't really prepare for this, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. But it's been a pleasure to work with you all, and I've learned a lot. I'd say probably the biggest thing I've learned is patience, because, I don't know, it can be kind of boring being a teenage boy, but it's okay. I really love trying new things, and over the week it's really grown on me, and I really enjoy just seeing all of you at work. And also I've been very impressed with how friendly you all are, and I would bet that probably 2/3 of you have come up to either Brian or I and just had like a decent conversation and really, that's just the word I think. And you just like, I think I could call a lot of you my friends, so thank you so much for that. And my plans for the future are to continue to try new things and follow my dreams, and my dreams are to hike and travel the world if I can and make new friends and share the happiness that I have with the world. So as of now, I want to hike from Mexico to Canada in 2023 on the Pacific Crest Trail, and then probably serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints after that. Then after that, we'll see. So yeah, thank you so much.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure that you've been here for us. And I did write some quotes down. Fun in its own way, kind of boring, decent conversation. That sticks with me. But probably the one that actually stuck with me is, I think you might have some hiking partners in this when you're ready to do that Pacific Crest, because I know there's some folks in here that like to go on those long distance things. So if you want some, you might have to help them. I'll just tell you, folks, I took these 2 young gentlemen up in the dome yesterday. I think they were at the top before I got up the first stairs. I'm just telling you right now, they're singers and cross-country runners. They were way ahead of me. So welcome. We're so glad you were here. Hope it's been enjoyable. I have 2 privileges. I have at least 2. So Representative Simpson, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Folks in the North Gallery are 2 of my daughters. They're visiting from Albuquerque, New Mexico. They happen to be my 2 daughters who are high school math teachers. A tidbit about one of them, she teaches in the Albuquerque School District, which has the same number of students that the entire state of Wyoming has, 1 district. And the district has a virtual middle school and high school built inside the district, and she works for that district, and this is her 3rd year, and she's never met face-to-face a single one of her students. Please welcome Courtney Powell, and Jashley Weiberg.
Well, thank you for your work. We welcome you home when you're ready to come home and teach children in Wyoming. Certainly think a lot of your father. All right, we have another privilege, Representative Banks.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
So please.
In the South Gallery, I would like to introduce Dr. Kim Dale, who is the president of Western Wyoming Community College in Rock Springs.
Welcome. We're going to have a lot of community board presidents and trustees here. So actually, I think I recognize more folks up there who I met at the reception. Of all of you folks, just stand. We're just going to recognize you corporately for the moment, if you don't mind. So these are trustees from, I think, many of them from the Southwest, but other parts of the state too. They're in town. Certainly they're interested in some of the things we're doing on this floor today and through the budget process, but other things. So these are folks that work in our communities, community colleges, and taking care of those things in our community. So let's welcome all of them to the House. Thank you, members. Representative Duncan,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege.
please proceed.
Thank you. I was going to introduce the Torrington folks that were here.
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
That's okay. You did it for me. But I just wanted to share something that really touched my heart this morning. I found out that in Torrington at EWC, we actually have a Ukrainian student. And so it just reminded me that it touches every single community in one way or another. And our current president's daughter-in-law and family is Ukrainian as well. So I had no idea how far-reaching some of these connections are. So if we could just keep all those people and families in our prayers, because it's in every single one of our communities that someone's touched by this. So that's just all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, thank you very much for that. So, members, we've got a full day ahead of us, and part of that full day is still being prepared by our staff, who is here very late and very early, getting budget amendments ready. We're still not at that place where we can launch into that, so we're going to take care of some other business, second readings, et cetera. I've got two additional announcements. So in the next few days, you're going to see some hearts going up in the wherever the chief clerk told them they could put hearts up, break room. Those hearts symbolize the donations that was made on behalf of members of this body and members of the other body of $5,330. So congratulations on that, which is being matched by one of our corporate citizens, one of the Blue healthcare provider in our state. Blue Cross Blue Shield are matching our donation. So out of the efforts of this body and our colleagues down the hall, $10,660 was raised on behalf of the First Lady's Hunger Initiative. So thank you for that. So now I'm gonna ask you to take a different approach to something. I'm just gonna ask you to just pause your hearts for just a moment. Pause everything. I have a verse in my office that says, "Be still. Be still." We had a colleague that just departed, left, not departed as in past, departed, because, and it's Representative Baker, because his first grandchild was born prematurely and is in a medical facility in another state. And as much as he wants to be here and do the people's work, he wants to be with his family. So we just take a moment and just lift him up in prayer and his family and that child for just a moment, just to give him one safe travels and then blessings on that, on the doctors and that child. If you just join me for just a moment. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, members. Appreciate all the good work yesterday, the rest of this past week. Today is, we're nearing halftime of this budget session, day 10, and we're going to move through quite a bit of business. First of all, we're going to start with, I'll do some read-in some bills, get some reports from standing committees, and then we're going to bills on second reading. If there's a, well, we'll do the journal committee first. But then, if there are bills, as you know, we did 30 bills on general file yesterday. We'd like to split that in half and have half of the bills on second reading today and half of them laid over for another day. So the majority of floor leaders already picked out some of the bills to lay over for the next day. But as we're doing these other business, majority of floor leaders just kind of walk down the aisle, up one side and down the other, and just say, if there's any bills you want pulled back because you want 2 full readings. Now, I've got a couple bills on this list that I'm going to actually ask to stay on today's list, and I'm going to bring third reading amendments to. I don't think we need 2 readings to work on them. But so anyway, so majority floor is going to do that while we get through some of this business. So first, journal committee report.
Your journal committee reports that the journal of February 24th, 2022 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Harrelson and Provenza.
Senate files on first reading.
Senate File 26, sponsored by Judiciary.
First reading of the bill.
District Judge Positions, Authorization, and Funding.
Next bill. 47.
Senate File 47, sponsored by Minerals.
First reading of the bill.
Carbon Storage and Sequestration Liability.
Senate file, oh, okay, I apologize, Chief Clerk. Senate file 26 is referred to committee number 1, Judiciary, and Senate file 47 is introduced and referred to committee number 9, Minerals. Follow the script, Barlow, follow the script. All right, next is reports from standing committees.
House Bill 137, sponsored by Representative Western. State Land Exchanges, Public Notice, an act relating to state lands. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 137, State Land Exchanges, Public Notice, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Eklund, Ortner, Western, Wharf, Winter. Noes, Representatives Heiner, Larson Dan. Excused, Representative Blackburn. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
So members, majority floor leaders coming down the aisle, just check with him if there's a particular bill you want pulled off. If there's none left, I guess we'll know where we are. All right, so the majority floor leader is going to read off the list of the bills that will continue, that we'll hear on second reading today. So the chief clerk, these are the ones that we will hear on second reading. So the chief clerk can get them in the, we can have them, reading clerk and the chief clerk can have them ready. So these are the bills that will be continued on. If somebody wants those, one of those removed, just please rise and let us know. I want everybody to have opportunity to debate these bills fully. If you need 2 full readings to do it, that is absolutely appropriate. So, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, would you give us the list of the bills that are staying on second reading as of this point?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. So the bills to remain on second reading are House Bill 5, 10, 15, 18, 31, 54, 55, 60, 62, 63, 73, 76, 81, 82, 88, 89, 91, 96, 107, 108, 110, 117, 123, and 125.
All right, members, any of those bills that someone would like to remain on second reading, or remain, taken off second reading? Taken off second reading.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think 96 was on that list. I'd like to take that off second reading.
So 96 is off second reading. Thank you. Any other members? Any other members? Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Washut, my apologies.
I'd like to have 91 pulled from the list.
91 is pulled from the list. And these are, members, these are ones, you don't have to volunteer your bill to come off. Thank you, Chairman Harshman. But these are ones that folks would like 2 readings maybe to do work on. So any other members? Any other members? So I'm just going to verify the list so the chief clerk, the reading clerk, and I are all on the same page. So the bills that will be on second reading today are House Bill 5, 10, 15, 18, 31, 54, 55, 60, 62, 63, 73, 76, 81, 82, 88, 89, 107, 108, 110, 117, 123, 125. Having been read 2 separate times, the question is, oh, I can't do that yet? All right. Yep. So there'll be a motion to lay back the bills that remain. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Pursuant to House Rule 7-3, I would like to lay back the following bills one day. House Bill 27, House Bill 56, House Bill 83, House Bill 91, House Bill 92, House Bill 96, House Bill 131, and House Bill 146.
No. So members, to be clear, House Bill 27, 56, 90, 83, 91, 92, 96, 131, and 146 are laid back without objection one day. So members, with that order of business, the bills on second reading. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 5.
House Bill 5, sponsored by Agriculture, Wild Horse and Borough Management, an act relating to land management.
Having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 10.
House Bill 10, sponsored by Select Tribal, Tribal Reference Amendments, an act relating to the tribes of the Wind River Indian Reservation.
House Bill 10, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 15.
House Bill 15, sponsored by Representative Summers, Political Subdivision, Club Liquor Licenses, an act related to alcoholic beverages.
House Bill 15, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 18.
House Bill 18, sponsored by Transportation, Off-Road Recreational Vehicle Registration Amendments, an act relating to motor vehicles.
House Bill 18, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 31.
House Bill 31, sponsored by Education, Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship Program, an act relating to higher education.
House Bill 31, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Next bill, 54.
House Bill 54, sponsored by Representative Larson Dan, State Parks Recreation Authority, an act relating to state lands.
I think that's actually Representative Dan Larson Lloyd. That's all right. House Bill 54, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. House Bill 55.
House Bill 55, sponsored by Representative Walters, Liquor Licenses, Airport Exemption, an act relating to alcoholic beverages.
House Bill 55, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 60.
House Bill 60, sponsored by Management Audit, fiscal training and enforcement of financial reporting laws, an act relating to minimal fiscal procedures, training for public officers.
House Bill 60, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 62.
House Bill 62, sponsored by corporations, insurance amendments, an act relating to insurance.
House Bill 62, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 63.
House Bill 63, sponsored by Representative Greer, county and district attorneys, salary amendments, an act relating to administration of government.
House Bill 63, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 73.
House Bill 73, sponsored by Select Water, Omnibus Water Bill Planning, an act relating to water development projects.
House Bill 73, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 76.
House Bill 76, sponsored by Representative Duncan, Single Office Real Estate Brokers, Licensing Requirements, an act relating to professions and occupations.
House Bill 76, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 81.
House Bill 81, sponsored by Representative Burt, Operation of Motorcycles, Disabled Persons, an act relating to motor vehicles.
House Bill 81, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 82.
House Bill 82, sponsored by Representative Wilson, Military Discharge and Benefits, an act relating to veterans' benefits and exemptions.
House Bill 82, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 88.
House Bill 88, sponsored by Representative Harshman, Name Change Notice, Publication of Minors Amendment, an act relating to civil procedure.
House Bill 88, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 89.
House Bill 89, sponsored by Representative Greer, Monthly Ad valorem Tax Revisions Enforcement, an act relating to mineral production.
House Bill 89, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 107.
House Bill 107, sponsored by Representative Simpson, Water State Revolving Funds Amendments, an act relating to the State Water Pollution Control Revolving Loan Account.
House Bill 107, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 108.
House Bill 108, sponsored by Representative Hallinan, Funeral Services Practitioner Amendments, an act relating to funeral service practitioners.
House Bill 108, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 110.
House Bill 110, sponsored by Representative Larson Lloyd, Board of Psychology, Behavior Analysis Regulation, an act relating to professions and occupations.
House Bill 110, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 117.
House Bill 117, sponsored by Representative Kenner, Occupational Therapy Licensure Compact, an act relating to professions and occupations.
House Bill 117, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. House Bill 123.
House Bill 123, sponsored by Representative Barlow, Mine Claim Reclamation, Disposal of Materials, an act relating to environmental quality.
House Bill 123, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection is so ordered. Next bill, House Bill 125.
House Bill 125, sponsored by Representative Connolly, Workplace Injury Assistance, Information and Guidance, an act relating to labor and employment.
House Bill 125, having been read two separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. So members, those bills will be on third reading and final passage come Monday. The bills that were withdrawn or were moved from the list via the rule will be on second reading Monday. All right, members, so we have one single bill besides House Bill number 1, the budget bill, on third reading, so we're just going to knock that out of the way. We're still waiting for one committee report to come in. So we're at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. The first bill and only bill at this moment for our consideration is House Bill 3. Reading clerk?
House Bill 3, sponsored by Agriculture, State Land Leases, an act relating to state lands, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
House Bill 3, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrew. Baker excused. Banks. Bear. Blackburn excused. Brown. Burkhart. Burt. Clausen. Connolly. Crago. Duncan. Eklund. Ayer. Flitner. Fortner. Gray. Greer. Hallinan. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Jennings. Kenner. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson Dan. LeBeau. McGuire. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Oakley. Obermuller.
Aye.
O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Paxton. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Romero Martinez. Roscoe. Schwartz. Sherwood.
Aye.
Simpson. Summers. Stith. Stith. Stivar. Sweeney. Walters. Washit. Western. Western. Wharf. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Yin. Zawanitzer. Mr. Speaker. Stith. Closing vote. Are there any changes? Closing vote. The vote is closed. 57 aye, 3 excused.
House Bill 3, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 3 has passed the House. Remember, we're just trying to make sure that we have our order of bills correct, so the. All right, Mr. Majority Floor Leader, where do you? Mr. Majority Floor Leader, would you give us some guidance on what your plan is?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last committee of the whole for House bills, and we may or may not get through this list, but this is the final list. It's House Bill 136, House Bill 44, House Bill 64, House Bill 85, House Bill 71, House Bill 105, House Bill 137, House Bill 72, and House Bill 147 if it becomes available. And Mr. Speaker, I would move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
All right, members, you've heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole, please say aye. Those opposed, no. Representative Newsom.
Okay, folks, we're going to roll so we can get through this stuff. So the committee of whole, please come to order. The first bill on our consideration list is House Bill 136. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 136, sponsored by Representative Eklund. Underground water contested case hearings, an act relating to underground water. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 136, Underground Water Contested Case Hearings, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Eklund, Fortner, Heiner, Worf, Winter. Noes, Representatives Larson, Dan, Western. Excuse, Representative Blackburn. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairman Eklund.
Madam Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with recommendation that House Bill 136 do pass, and I will explain it. This is a bill that pertains to groundwater permitting, and all it does is clarifies who in this permitting process is responsible to bear the burden of proof, and that will be found, don't know what lines of the page, but it'll be found in a one sentence. In any contested case hearing conducted under this section, the applicant or the petitioner shall bear the burden of proof. So just some clarifications. It's only in control areas, and it's only contested cases. We've run into kind of a snag as to who bears this burden of proof. This bill would have this junior right holder having to bear the burden of proof that he's not doing any damage to the senior rights holders. So that's really all the bill does, clarification. I'd stand for questions.
Any other comments? I hear the call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. This bill carries. The next bill for our consideration, House Bill 136, passes the Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 44, which is my bill, so reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 44, sponsored by Representative Newsom. Mobile home and vehicle titles and transfers, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred House Bill 44, Mobile home and vehicle titles and transfers, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with a recommendation that House Bill 44 do pass, and turn the explanation over to the good sponsor.
Vice Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that on introduction got all of your votes and in committee got all of your votes. So I'm hoping to make this short and sweet. This is a cleanup bill to some vehicle titling issues that got left behind on mobile homes several years ago when we changed the statute that allows for the conjunctive and or to be added into ownership. Mobile homes are defined under the motor vehicle statute and require a title for transfer of ownership or to be moved from one property to another. There are also a couple more places that are conforming language that were left behind in that original legislation, including a provision that sales tax can be supplied to the applicant when paying tax on a new vehicle purchase. Section 3 is the application for duplicate titles, and presently everyone on the face of a title must sign a duplicate application, which can be problematic for some. This change would allow for any owner who appears on the face of the title to make application for a duplicate, and this makes the process of getting a duplicate title easier on the owners and the clerks. If you'd like.
Any other discussion on the bill? Seeing no further discussion and question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Burkhart's motion, the Committee of the Whole rise to report it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 44 do pass, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. House Bill 44 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 64. Reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 64, sponsored by Representative Brown, Vehicle Service Contracts, an act relating to the Insurance Code. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 64, Vehicle Service Contracts. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stybar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that House Bill 64 do pass and turn the explanation over to the good sponsor.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty simple bill. I explained the majority of it during introduction. Really what we're doing with this particular bill is changing the way that we look at vehicle service contracts, and we're taking them out of the insurance title code and putting them underneath the Department of Insurance, underneath their proper place, which is vehicle service contracts. We do a few other changes in here. Mainly what we do is we update the information and some standards that we see from other states across the country. Really what we're doing is just cleaning up our statutes with this to make sure that we have proper stuff in place if we have consumer protection issues, and this bill helps with the consumer protection process. I'll stand for any questions.
Representative Brown, is there an amendment? Is there a standing committee amendment?
Did you move that? Madam Chairwoman, there is a standing committee amendment, and I will go ahead and move that at this point. And that standing committee amendment is just adding some additional clarifying language inside the statute that was actually brought to us by the insurance commissioner. And that just updates our statutes with some of the language that we've seen in some other states. So if there's no questions on that, I'd call for the question.
Standing committee amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Question on the bill. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. And then, where am I, Wendy? We adopted the amendment. Well, we just voted on House Bill 64 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 85.
House Bill 85, sponsored by Representative Oakley, Child Endangering Controlled Substance Use While Pregnant, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 85, Child Endangering Controlled Substance Use While Pregnant. Respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Craigo, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Swanitzer, Noes, Representatives Provenza and Yin. Representative Washit, Vice Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairman Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 85 do pass, and there are no standing committee amendments on this bill. And I will turn over the explanation of this bill to the good counselor who keeps the streets of Fremont County clean.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a lot to add, as I discussed this during introduction. Of course, what this is an effort to basically correct what I believe was sort of an unintentional leaving out of this conduct of child endangering, because our child endangering statutes, of course, already already have that it's anything that would affect or hurt the life or endanger the child in any way. It's illegal to possess methamphetamine. It's illegal to use methamphetamine, but it was interpreted to have it that it's not illegal to ingest methamphetamine when you're pregnant. And I do believe that that's something that we as a society thinks is something that should be prohibited conduct. And so this simply gets our laws in line with what we believe they should be. And I would urge the body to support that. We have heard from some counselors, some substance abuse and mental health providers with a concern about incarceration versus care and support, despite me saying I do believe that that's what the criminal justice system would do. But I'm looking at possibly bringing an amendment to ensure that it maybe require that the woman gets a chance at treatment first, so that we can have that policy discussion on the floor. But at this point, I would just urge your I vote. Thank you.
There appear to be a couple of committee of the whole amendments. Would somebody like to move those? Representative Yin.
Mr. Chairman, so I'm the one bringing committee of the whole amendments. I will move committee of the whole amendment number 1 to House Bill 85 and ask for your favorable consideration. So colleagues in committee, we actually went up against the time consideration before we had to come back into session. So I wasn't able to discuss all of my amendments in committee, and so I'm bringing them here to the floor for you to approve for your liking. This amendment number 1 removes the Schedule 1 and 2 narcotic provision, because if you look in your green book, 64405 is specific to methamphetamine. So it is specific to child endangerment with methamphetamine, but we only make it a felony for that methamphetamine child endangerment process. When it's other drugs, there's a separate section where we have it under child endangerment, but it ends up being a misdemeanor. So having this 1 and 2 kind of has this discontinuity where pregnant folks are able to get a felony for narcotic drugs, while other kids that are outside the womb is only a misdemeanor. And so this helps correct that. And so I would move for your favorable consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to say I think it's a great amendment because I brought it up in the committee. As the good former speaker said, the rest of the statutory citations only deal with methamphetamine, and it does seem really odd, regardless of any other issue in the bill, that we would throw Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 in this specific section on this bill. And so I do think it should come out. I know there's a couple of ways to do it. The other way would be to add Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs into the other parts of the methamphetamine statute. That might be the other policy consideration we can take up. But for today on this amendment, I think it's good, and I think it just keeps that statute consistent all the way through.
Any other comments? Sensing you might be ready to vote. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment 1, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. We're moving on to the next. Do you want division? Okay. All those in favor of the Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, please stand. All those opposed? More than 22. Oh, do I have? Never mind. No, it's all those stand. I'm sorry. My. (28) So that amendment fails. Moving on to the next Committee of the Whole Amendment, Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 to House Bill 85 and ask for your favorable consideration. So the good bringer of the bill noticed that we do have a definition of what a narcotic drug is, because there was conversations on whether it could include marijuana or not, but in the definition, it does not include marijuana. This makes it very explicit to point to that definition, just so we make sure that if we have any other definition of narcotic drug, we're not referencing the wrong definition or there isn't any ambiguity. So this just makes it very unambiguous which definition of narcotic drug we're speaking to. I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Any other comments? Hearing the question called, we are on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, please say aye. Opposed, no. That amendment passes, so that amendment is adopted. Back on the bill. Is there any more discussion on the bill? Representative Stiff?
Madam Chairman, just have a question for the sponsor of the bill. In states that already have this statutory framework, my question is, how does it play out? That is, opponents of the bill, is my understanding, are concerned that if you have someone who's a cocaine addict, that their child gets taken away and they go to prison for 5 years. My question is, what's likely to actually happen? So that's my question for the bill sponsor.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. To answer the last speaker's question, there's evidence that has supported that in states that use punitive measures against pregnant mothers who are using substances, one study in particular examined 4.6 million births in 8 states between 2003 and 2014, and they found that more infants are born experiencing drug withdrawal symptoms, which is often what drives more long-term problematic outcomes. So it has the opposite effect that it is intended to. It causes women to not go to see a medical professional. It causes women not to get prenatal care. It causes women to potentially consider other means because of childbirth, because they don't want to go to a hospital and potentially end up facing criminal charges. And so it is detrimental to the issue of caring about infants and caring about mothers. And it also doesn't stop the act. We have plenty of laws in our Title VII statutes that people still commit. We have the death penalty. People still commit murder. This is not a question of if we just make it punitive, then people will stop doing it. And we kept hearing yesterday in committee, and I think it was mentioned by the bringer of the bill, that, we're just going to send them to probation. They're just going to get care. But there are no guarantees of that. And that's often what doesn't happen in other states that use similar laws. And probation is one of the main reasons why people end up in our prisons, because they couldn't fulfill probation or they violated parole. So to say that this is just going to be probation, it's not going to be a big deal, no one's going to face 5 years in prison, is factually inaccurate. So I would urge you to vote no on this bill.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question goes to what's currently available in Wyoming relative to this bill in terms of interacting or interfacing with the family services and those programs that will address the situation in a productive way, particularly in rural areas. The other day when we had the opportunity to visit with our law enforcement people and various counties, my number one question was, what's your number one crime? And most of them told me drugs and substance abuse. So I'm very interested in learning more about how this will interface. What's the vision for interfacing with existing, family services support in our state and this bill?
Representative War.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to this bill, and
most you people recognize me. I am a very staunch supporter of pro-life. I think this is just wrong-headed. I know people that have had been victims of substance abuse, and I just know that they don't always make good choices. I see this as being a very punitive bill, and I see it driving things in the wrong direction. I don't think this is going to save people's lives. I think, in fact, this is probably going to put more women and more babies in danger. I would urge the body to vote this down. I do not see this as a pro-life bill, and I'm sickened by the fact that we want to further victimize somebody. People that have addictive behaviors, this does not help that problem. I see it, almost seems like to me that this is a vindictive measure. And so I would urge this body to understand that the likelihood of this is probably going to be more women seeking self-abortions. When they realize the fact that they could be facing the penalties that are in this bill, I think they're going to make a choice, and that choice is not going to be to care for that baby, and it could be even to end their life, which would end the life of the baby. So I would urge the body to resist this and vote no.
So I'd remind everybody not to impugn anyone's character as we go through our discussions. Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, so to the good last speaker, that was a question that I asked in committee to substance abuse providers and to a woman who was pregnant and on meth, and whether it would be a consideration if criminal prosecution would lead to the probability of more of women like her getting abortions. And she said yes. And so I am really worried that this bill, not only will it prevent women from receiving care, that there's a risk of it increasing the number of abortions in our state. And so I would resist the bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question for the bringer of the bill. I want to know if there's any stats on the fiscal impact, because if the child is taken away from the parent, then it's more than likely going to be a ward of the state. So there's going to be a cost to that. So I'd like to know a little bit more about the fiscal impact to the state for the potentials.
Representative Burt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree with a lot of the statements on, I think this will have a greater impact, negative impact in our communities than it will a positive. The other way I want to look at it is that we already have a growing concern for the workload we have in our judicial system, and instead of having to increase their budget for the workload, maybe we can figure out how to not increase their workload. And I see that as an unintended consequence. That's what this will do. So on and against the bill.
Representative Craigo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll try to respond to a couple of the questions. I'm on and supporter of the bill. As to the fiscal impact question that was just asked a second ago, I don't think this bill actually will, especially in the case of DFS care, I don't think this bill will affect that, because if the mother of a newborn tests positive for meth or some other drug, agency that takes care of our children, family services, they're going to get called no matter what, whether it's a misdemeanor use or whether it's a crime under this proposed bill, they're still going to get involved. So I don't think that really changes the equation. There's a good chance that the child might be taken away from the mother no matter what at that point, whether this crime is instituted or not. What I really see the benefit of the bill is, and I talked about this in committee, and I view it from, I guess, a different perspective than some of the other people that have spoken previously, is I don't see it as a punitive measure. I see it as a way for us to get help to mothers that need it. Right now, we don't. One of the problems we have is this particular set of circumstances that we're talking about in the bill is not a crime. And so there is no way to prosecute those women for that. And the mothers that need help, we can't get it to them. We can't require them to go get help. I view this as a way to do that. I think we've talked, the sponsor and myself have talked to some of the stakeholders involved, and I think we're trying to work out an amendment that makes sure that these mothers don't automatically go to prison, that they get a chance to get treatment, that they get a chance to work on their abuse problems before prison would ever happen. We need to work on that. I think we need to get an amendment in there to do that, but I have some ideas on how to make that happen. It really would be, in my mind, a way to give us the ability to help them, not hurt them. If they're not willing to get the help, then yes, there would be the ability of the prosecutors to have the felony hanging over their head to make sure they get the help. And on and for the bill.
Representatives Romero Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On and for the bill, and in regards to the last speaker from the land far from me, I think I would like to entertain the notion or the idea of a workable amendment. After speaking to the majority of stakeholders in the health community, they really did urge some very important parts. To the people who just want to see the bill dead, I understand your point, but I think let's try to have a meaningful amendment moving forward. My input would be treatment in lieu of type of language. Now, if we can't achieve that, that's fine. After I sat in on that committee meeting and did try to make an effort towards that on first read, I didn't have anybody phone calling me to try to make that happen in a timely manner. So I don't think we just stop the conversation. We continue to look at the best option for our state. And I just want to make the brief suggestion in what Texas and New Mexico have been doing. And I think the main thing is we're trying to prevent this ongoing crisis from continuing. Thank you for listening and for your consideration.
Representative Connolly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Friends, let's be really clear about what this bill is. And the good attorney 2 speakers ago said this is not a punitive measure. And I respectfully disagree. That's all this bill is a punitive measure. That's all it is. What this bill does is go into Title VI and make certain behavior a felony with felony punishment. That's all it does. It does nothing more. It does not guarantee care. It does not guarantee therapy. It does not guarantee rehab. It doesn't do any of those things. All this bill does is make a new felony for pregnant women. On and against.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to encourage an aye vote on it. Certainly at this stage, with the hopes that we can maybe work on some amendments. I think the value of having a potential charge is that, whether you see it as a carrot or a stick, that can encourage a person to get care. And I'll just give an example. This was not about pregnancy, but I personally know of a situation in the state to our south where the person had been arrested for a couple of things, and drug use was one of them, that was on probation, was supposed to go in for weekly urinalysis. And then during COVID, the corrections system in Colorado decided it was too dangerous to test people for drugs during COVID, so they stopped. So this person, whom I know, no longer had to be tested every week, and started using drugs again and ended up in a far worse place. So I realize that that's not the exact same thing as a pregnancy, but I really think the ability to use the system and requirements of the system to encourage people to get care is a useful tool. And while we may not all be satisfied with exactly how that's phrased, I really do think we need to move forward on this. Thank you.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, a lot of ideas bouncing around here. So I've heard, I guess repeatedly, that it is simply punitive, which it is just not the case. I mean, if you have a basic understanding of the criminal justice system, let alone an in-depth one, it is used in many ways, and the idea that it's simply punitive, I simply reject. The reality is, this is the way that we have to ensure compliance when a woman is actively abusing drugs that are already illegal. We already know that. And what I hear over and over and over again is just about this woman. Where is the balance? Like I say, it's illegal for that woman to be using and ingesting methamphetamine anyway. That's already illegal. And then on top of that, with this whole, there's no discussion about what's good for the child. Then they say it's simply punitive. No, we're trying to gain compliance so that the child has a chance, the child can be safe, the child can be drug-free, the child can live in a drug-free home. That is what probation agents do over and over all across this country and certainly all across our state. In the criminal justice system, a judge has to go on the record and make findings. The default is probation, even in felonies. Judges give probation. The only, I mean, automatic unless it's a, murder, and murder one doesn't have probation, but sometimes even violent felons get them. But every single case like this and those other felonies, like if they had a child with methamphetamine in the room, that's a 5-year felony. Give me an example where that person didn't get probation, because you won't be able to find one. The point is, that is what we do to gain compliance. We have them get a probation agent. We have them do urinalysis, basically a government paid babysitter, but that's what we do for people just to get their own lives straight. And now here we're not going to do it where they're also endangering a child. It just doesn't make any sense. This goes along with the rest of our laws. I can guarantee you that a judge, they have to, by law, go through and look at probation and make findings. They would have to find that the person was inappropriate for probation. That's not going to happen. I tried to make short work of this, though, because I was saying it doesn't exist, but I was willing to look at, we can look at a language, adding language that says the judge has to look at probation and at treatment. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that this conduct should not be prohibited, and we should not discuss the absolute dangers that you're looking at for a child in this situation. To ignore that, which is completely has been missing from this conversation so far, I think is, I think shows some political motive, if you will. Maybe perhaps I shouldn't say that, but we should focus on the child as well. Finally, there's this discussion about, what about interfacing with services? Of course, of course. We have the Department of Family Services, or we have all sorts of things that counselors, in fact, one of the ways to make sure that they go take care of those services is that we have a carrot and a stick, and we have a probation agent. Without this, it has happened that the woman takes her child that has methamphetamine in its system and she goes home. That has happened. So this adds, what I think you can think of, this adds the parents in the room, and the parents are going to ensure that there's compliance. And I think this is worthy of doing it. It fits along with the rest of our laws.
Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I spoke earlier to my concerns about the health of the infant or the baby through the concern that, again, this policy results in worse outcomes. That's my concern. It was mentioned that this bill would essentially encourage women to go seek treatment or get substance use treatment. And again, it is quite the opposite. because of the concern that they're going to end up incarcerated, then they're afraid to talk to their doctor. They're afraid to tell their doctor what they're doing, or go to one at all, or go to substance abuse treatment, because then they're concerned about the punitive measures that could be brought. The amendment that needs to be written for this bill probably wouldn't be germane for it, because the solution is to put this in public health, because this is a public health crisis. This is not something that the justice system can fix with punitive measures. So the amendment needs to move this entirely out of our criminal statutes. And maybe it's that we design programs where we either give vouchers or we ensure that we set up structures in this state that rehabilitate these women so that we can have better outcomes for them and the child. Because going into foster care results in far worse outcomes. No one wants to advocate that children should be subjected to drugs. I'm not advocating that at all. I'm advocating the opposite. So I really, let's talk about this in an interim. Let's talk about how to do public health, because the justice system is not designed for this. Thank you.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Just a question. So if methamphetamine use is already, obviously we know that that's illegal, right? And the first stop, if a mother, a pregnant woman is caught or found with methamphetamine, is probation and parole. I guess I'm failing to understand, is this just sort of piling on to that? What's the difference that this bill has that the existing laws which prevent or prohibit the use of methamphetamine? What is the difference between what this is doing and what those laws already are on the books are doing? Thank you.
Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Lady. I don't think that we want to lose total sight here also, that there's another life that's involved here. And that child, when are we going to speak up for that child? And so there's a value in standing up. If we preserve some life here, sometimes there's things that you have to lay a little bit of hammer down, and you hope not to. In our justice system, certainly we want to be able to reach out and help. And I see our judicial system as being willing to do that. But I see this also, there's some times where we want to stand up for that child in the womb. That baby deserves some protection also. And it's just a thing of saying, hey, look, this baby doesn't deserve this type of treatment. So on and for the bill.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To address some questions, I certainly wouldn't, the point isn't to pile on. The point is to get it right, to get the conduct that is prohibited and the appropriate both punishment and ability for rehabilitation. If just me, myself, and I am using methamphetamine in Wyoming, that's a misdemeanor, and I think probably that's appropriate. It is a felony in some states just to simply use, but anyway, here it is. So then you would only be looking at a very short term of probation, which doesn't then get you through the potentially the time of rehab and monitoring that we want, because the point is, this is considered, the point of this bill would be that we're catching the conduct. We think it is more egregious when you're doing this and you're pregnant, because we recognize that the danger is higher. We recognize that the effects of this behavior are really devastating. Not only to the woman, to the child, to the system. If we really want to talk about the costs of it, what are the costs of this behavior? It's a lot on society, on the child. So what this does then is recognize, to the good representative's question, recognize that, and therefore we can have the appropriate action as far as probation, treatment, and ensuring to ensure the compliance for the mother and the child.
Representative
Thank you, Madam.
LeBeau.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just have a question and a concern, and I'm really honored to be sitting among this body to ensure that our communities are safe and that we value life and lives. My question to the bringer of the bill, we talked about services, particularly support services, if this bill should pass. And I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence, that we're thinking of everybody. Are there gaps in our service systems if we should pass this bill in order to help heal the mother from an addiction? Is the intent to get the mother and the baby back to reunification? And if the support system is not where it needs to be, then I have a concern with this bill. And are there gaps? And are there statistics? I know it happens. I'm not up here before you saying that pregnant women don't use drugs, illegal drugs. But what is the data? What is the stats? Do you have that? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can tell you there clearly are a lot of people interested and involved with this just through doing this bill. Wish I could tell you all the different organizations. And clearly, we've discussed it, DFS, substance abuse providers, medical providers. We got testimony about a 21-bed unit that specifically deals with this, and they're looking at increasing beds. So certainly that is a component of this, and we as a body can fund those efforts. So when they come to us and they want more beds because this is a very real danger, we can help. We can help with that by funding it. But at this point, we're looking at prohibiting the conduct so that our state says, yes, we think this is conduct that is dangerous and costly, and we're going to call that illegal.
Chairman Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do want to make a link with some of the substance abuse things, the question that was just asked. Last session, we passed a bill, House Bill 38, that was setting up priorities for our community mental health centers. And we had a bill that we actually passed out of this body. It's gone down the hall. And I just want to remind us, we specifically put at the highest priority for our community mental health services, the justice involved. And I'm just reading, one of the categories of this is a person who's been convicted of or pled nolo contendere to a criminal offense in order to enroll in treatment program for a mental illness or substance use disorder as part of their sentence. So we have very specifically said to our community mental health centers, we want you to really focus on folks with this problem. So we have done that. I'm not here to say, as certainly as chairman of the committee, that I do that there's all the money in the system that I would like, but that is something that we have done last year and this year.
Further discussion? Hearing the question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Olson's motion that the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 85 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 85 has passed the committee of the whole. And division being called. All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed? Less than 39.
Privilege of the floor. Oh, sorry.
Oh, the committee, House Bill 85 has passed the committee of the whole. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Apologize about that interruption there. I believe we have some of the Casper College board up there on the left-hand side. Susan Miller, Steve Degenfelder, and a legend who served a long time, Kathy Dolan. Thank you for being here.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So members, I'd like you to also welcome the Student Senate from the new Gillette College Community College District, the President Derek Kimball, Vice President Hannah Smith, Malia Anderson, Treasurer, Avery Maxwell, Secretary, Advisors, Susan Surge, and Grace Henderson. Please welcome them to the House.
Representative Provenza, privilege of the floor.
May I have privilege?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. After talking so much about mothers, I want to introduce my mom, who is sitting up in the gallery. I believe that's north. I don't know directions.
Okay, so moving on, the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 11. Will the reading clerk read the bill? 71. Okay, House Bill 71. Reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 71, sponsored by Representative Crago. Driving while license suspended, enhancement amendment, an act relating to driver's licenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 71, driving while license suspended, enhancement amendment, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Crago, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Yin, Swanitzer. Noes, Representative Provenza. Representative Olson, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Olson?
I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 71 do pass. There are no standing committee amendments on this bill, and I will turn over the explanation of the bill to the energetic country lawyer.
Representative Crago.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, I bring to you House Bill 71. Ask for your favorable consideration. I'll keep this real brief. We had a discussion on introduction. Essentially what this bill does is treat those people convicted of a second driving while suspended, driving while your license is suspended. Second conviction in Wyoming keeps them same as these people who are convicted out of state for the exact same crime. Right now, if you have a conviction from out of state, you are treated differently than if you have a conviction for in-state. Just clarifying the statute. Judges around the state interpret the statute a little bit differently depending on which district or jurisdiction you're in. And so we're just trying to clean that up and make it consistent across the state of Wyoming. I'd stand for any questions, and if there are none, I'd call for the question.
The question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Olson's motion that the committee of the whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 71 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 71 has passed the committee of the whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 105.
House Bill 105, sponsored by Representative Hallinan. Severance tax reduction, coal, an act relating to taxation and revenue. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2 appropriations, to whom was referred House Bill 105, severance tax reduction, coal, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do not pass. Representatives Kenner. No, ayes, Representatives Kenner, Larson Lloyd, Nicholas, Schwartz, Simpson, Stith, Walters. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Vice Chairman Larson.
I move that when Committee of the Whole rise to report, House Bill 105 do pass, and I turn it over to the good Majority Floor Leader. No, this is 105. To the great doctor from the land of coal for the explanation. I
Representative-
apologize, Madam Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Madam
Representative
Chairman.
Hallinan.
My voice is kind of out a little bit today, but I hope you can still hear me. House Bill 105 is very simple. It reduces the severance tax on coal by 0.5%. Now, you say, why would I want to do that? The severance tax on oil and gas is 6%. The severance tax on coal is 7%. Just a matter of being fair, because they are competitors, it would be reasonable to lower that price so they would be more equal. 6.5%. What does this 1% increase?
John?
I'll just say the 6% versus 7%. The 1% increase for the last 10 years has mounted to $250 million more in tax for the coal industry than it has for the oil and gas. So they've paid a significant price over these last 10 years. This 0.5% would be approximately 9%, or approximately $9 million that would be reduced in their severance tax bill. So that would only be about 3% of the $292 million per year annually, if I go by 2021. $292 million in taxes paid by the coal industry to the state of Wyoming. $292 million. So this would be a small percentage of that tax. It would be about 3%. But their margin on their coal is small. So it might be enough to make these companies be more strong in terms of their financial position. I would say that the coal industry is the goose that laid the golden egg for the state of Wyoming. If you imagine that we had the coal industry being like that little train on the Walt Disney show years ago, the little train that that thought they could. The coal industry is the engine of that train. Behind that train is a car, and it had $292 million in it. And we have to look right now at the way the coal industry has to face against the administration. The administration wants to put a $2 tax on coal per ton. That was in their Bring It Back Better bill. It also wants to raise the price of royalties that they have to pay. So you see that as the hill that that little train has to go over. And at the other end of that train is our state government, where we get $292 million when it makes it up over that hill. So I say that it's very good policy for our state to lower that amount of tax that's in that car behind the engine by a mere $9 million. And I might add that this money does not come at the cost of the school districts. It's coming out of the general fund. So with that in mind, I urge your aye vote on this bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Representative Yin.
Madam Chairman, so I'm looking at the status of this bill, and when it was re-referred to appropriations, a motion came out of a recommend do not pass at 7-0. So I'm curious, maybe, hopefully the Chair of Appropriations can help explain what that means to me. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, ladies and gentlemen, the appropriations voted do not pass. Coal today is trading at $21 a ton. That's more than it's been since 1974. So, in point of fact, the coal industry and the coal companies are making more money now than they've made ever on their price per ton per coal. So, and there's a reason why it's $7. Our tax is set the way it is, and this body established that tax after doing a cost-benefit analysis of what a reasonable price is, a reasonable severance tax is for coal. That's how we came up with the figure. You know, the cost of production and what they do and how much they do it is different than oil and gas, and that's why they're different. Underground coal has a lower tax on it because the cost of production is significantly higher. So everything has a level that's set based upon the evaluation that this body has done. I would submit to you that today, right now, is not the time when they're making more money than they've made ever, basically, on the price per ton per coal per production. In addition to that, if someone's going to come and cut out $18 million a year in revenue to the state of Wyoming, they need to find an offset. Where's that money going to come from? Or are we just going to reduce our budget for $18 million a biennium? So on and against the bill.
Representative Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a great discussion for us to have. You know, coal has definitely powered this state and put this state in a position to control its destiny to the extent we can in this world because of our planning and because of the value that this resource has brought to us. Always good to look at our tax structure and look at it in the current market. I want to push back just a little bit. While spot prices might be very high right now, the simple fact when you deal with a bulk commodity, you typically, and this is the case in the coal industry, you'll contract well over 90%, 18 months to 2 years out, and your buyers aren't buying off spot price at all. Those are spot prices are for people, for consumers who failed to plan. $18 million hit to the general fund. You got to think about that too, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, this policy. I'm going to kind of spring a little surprise on the sponsor because I haven't had a chance to talk to him. But, you know, we brought this great bill out of minerals, and one of many in the last 10 years. But anyway, this great bill out of minerals regarding bonding in dedicated trust. Remember that? Okay. You know, I mean, so sort of this continue this conversation, but wouldn't it be nice that we say for those companies that are going to put their bonding dollars in this dedicated trust to ensure that the reclamations done in the past, maybe they get a tax credit up to 0.5% until they're fully bonded. So just continue to have the discussion. There's two sides on it. I'm just going to say this with respect to setting the severance. It was a different era. You know, I mean, right now it is volume. You know, you've seen the industry try to consolidate. You've seen a turnover in the industry, and they're only staying in there with their margins because of efficiency. It's the only reason why. So if our tax structure is such that they can't keep pace with the efficiency, then we see it go away. So good discussion for us to have.
Majority Floor Leader Summers.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, thank you. And I do want to thank the coal company. My concern and all of the dollars they've generated and the jobs they've generated in the state of Wyoming. But my concern about this bill is we're plucking one item here in severance, and we're not looking at the broad structure of our tax base. If we're going to make this shift away from severance, should it be just coal? Should it be coal, gas, oil, Trona? Should it be all of those? And if it is, then are we going to shift it somewhere else, and where are we going to shift it? But I think doing these one-offs is probably not productive to the state of Wyoming until we decide where we want to go. And so I'd urge caution on this bill.
Further discussion? Representative Knapp.
Madam Chair, thank you. The bringer of the bill talked about fairness and talked about the price of coal, price of oil. I don't know why we would base it on those instances. It's fair. Coal has been the engine that has powered this state, along with other minerals. But the playing field of that tax is unfair. I heard mention now's not the right time. When is the right time? We've taxed this industry, whether it's been good, we've taxed this industry just as much when it's bad. This state and its tax structure has helped to put those nails in the coffin of this industry. AML funds, we take 10% right off the bat for reclamation. This industry has been taxed to death. And all this bill brings is a matter of fairness amongst those mineral industries. Thank you.
Vice Chairman Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd agree with the good chairman of minerals, who I normally do agree with, that this discussion is really important for this body to consider at this time. As we look again at our energy policy across the state, and we determine what has provided the revenue for the state to provide the services that the citizens want, it has been the extractive industries. Is it time to reevaluate the tax structure of the state, because we have, as you heard, contributed to putting some of the nails in the coffin? Wouldn't argue that. But if we're going to have that conversation, we also have to have the conversation about how we're going to raise revenue and what other sources of taxes are out there. And some of the rest of us are going to have to belly up to the bar. And we can't just be no on some of these structures. And we can shake our head. Even if I had a big hairy beard, I could shake my head, but I won't. And tell you that we're going to have to come back and look at how we provide some of these services. And so I just hope that you'll bear in mind, as we have this conversation, that the tax structure that we have, the foundation of the tax structure we have, will not bear the burden that we need to carry on the needs of this state.
Further discussion? Representative Baer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let's think about what we're really talking about here. $9 million. We just had an influx of ARPA funds that have replaced our revenue for $450 million. $9 million a year we're talking about giving this relief. And I would go back to the bringer of the bills illustration, the little engine that could. As he stated, getting over the hill gets that load so that we can continue receiving those revenues. We live in a time and a place where we have an administration that is bringing unbelievable burdens on this industry. They're out to kill it. Let's not be thinking anything else, but they're trying to kill it. It's our job in the state of Wyoming to protect it and try to save it. This goes a little ways, and I appreciate the majority floor leaders bringing the idea of a study for fairness and taxation. We do need to do that. I think it'd be a great interim study. But here's one step we can do right now to fix a fairness issue. And it's a small step. The good bringer of the bill did not even try to make it exactly even. He went halfway. I would have Gladly supported going all the way and making it even with oil and coal. But halfway, $9 million a year, after receiving $450 million, and that's only part of $1 billion that the federal government has sent our way. How are they paying for this $1 billion? On the backs of your constituents. Every one of them feels it every day when they go to the gas pump, when they go to the grocery store. We're accepting those funds. We're going to spend them. And at the same time, we can't let go of $9 million from an industry that has built the state the way it is today. Not only that, but as the good doctor said, we need to get that revenue over the hill. If you don't help the industry out now, we'll pay a heavier price later when nothing is available, when the administration has convinced the financial industry to avoid coal. Even the board members of these companies that produce the coal, that produce the revenues that we're talking about here, even those board members have bought into this war on coal. So these corporations are seeing it from every single direction. Let's give them a little relief. On and for the bill.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. July 9th, 2019, 2 coal mines shut down, 600 employees laid off. February 9th, 2021, this week, another mine closed down, or in the process of closing down. Would 0.5% save them? No, probably not. Probably not. But there has to come a point where we do let up somewhere. Because if we're not careful, I mean, if you actually break down the cost analysis of those mines shutting down for this state, I think $9 million is nothing. And we need to just start understanding, how do we protect these industries, these companies that are struggling to keep the doors open on these mines? 16 open mines in Gillette, -1 because of this week. So where are we at, you guys? I think we just need to start asking these questions, because if we're not careful in my lifetime, we won't see coal mines in this state anymore. And then we got to really figure out a funding picture. And it's, I mean, you can't raise taxes that much, guys. So we just got to figure something out. So let's figure out what that is. Let's go forward and let's figure that out.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to say that in the last 15 years, I have heard about the coal industry and how important they are to our the education of our young people. The money that has been brought in, the state-of-the-art facilities that have been brought in, the services that have been provided, all on an industry. It's also been a prime employer for a few of our counties. And we have one of the cleanest, best reserves in the country and probably the world. So I was a co-sponsor on this bill, not because I know a lot about investment practices, although I'm learning through this budget session quite a bit more than I knew before. But one thing we've been doing is putting things under the guise of capital finance and how we need to invest in things to bring returns years down the road for posterity. There's been a national and very probably international war on coal. We need to support this industry so that we can continue to support the agencies and different bureaus that it does support for our state, and the people and the families that have benefited. So we can always go back and relook at it. We can always deal with it another time, but in a time when we are looking at how to keep things coming in, I would suggest that we do this. So I would vote aye. Thank you.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, members, there's only one difficulty with this bill. It's half of the bill that I brought 5 or 6 years ago. Because the bill I brought 5 or 6 years ago dropped it by a full %. This is the district that I represent, my community. The jobs that were spoken about, the jobs in the community that I represent and 4 other members of this body. This is very important in my community, and I'd ask you to support this bill, even though even though it only goes half as far as I hoped we would have gone 5 or 6 years ago. So on and for the bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Representative Dien.
Madam Chairman, point of order. So House Rule 6.2, order of the general file. Bills on general file shall be considered in the following order: do pass first, second without recommendation bills, and third do not pass bill. This one came out of a committee with a do not pass. So I would like to call a Rules Committee for advice on whether this is a violation of the rules.
So if you are a member of the Rules Committee, please come up. And if you're not a member of the Rules Committee, you're welcome to come up and listen to the discussion. The
Objection is out of order. You agree?
The objection was ruled out of order, and I agree with the rules with that call. So we'll carry on with the business. Any further discussion on House Bill 137. I'm sorry, House Bill 105. Representative Yen.
Madam Chairman, on House Bill 105, so, the discussion today kind of reminds me of the story that the good representative from the middle of the state gave earlier this week on the origin of severance tax, and that a lot of the opponents of the severance tax itself thought it's going to kill the industry. Turns out it didn't kill the industry. I think this reduction isn't going to affect how much coal gets mined out of the ground. It's just going to affect how much that we can pay our state government to run the services that we need to run the state. So I do think that this doesn't do anything except for give $10 million to companies that are doing really well right now. One of those companies, the biggest one, has the highest stock price that they've had in 5 years. I feel free to look it up. And so it kind of boggles my mind why we're willing to give them $10 million in perpetuity to keep doing that when we all know, since we've passed the severance tax and the origin of it, that it didn't affect the amount of coal that came out of the ground in Wyoming. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Representative Wharf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would urge the body to support this bill. One of the points that I think hasn't been brought up that I think is important, we've talked about paying out, awarding raises and increases to state employees, the people that we can affect. We haven't really talked about the common man. And even though this is no guarantee that they will get this, I do know that by giving a break to the industry that has really provided for this state and has allowed us the opportunity to bank over $400 million in our savings, I think this is, it's a good move on our part. It gives $9 million back, that hopefully that $9 million will be put back into either more employees, more money going back into our communities. It's not just state employees that have suffered. A lot of these coal mines have, it's been said, they've had to let people go. Some have shut down and closed. I do think they need to have some relief. It's only fair. It isn't going beyond. And we've got money that we're banking. I think we can afford this. Thank you.
Representative Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a thought on, just a quick policy thought on coal, natural gas, what's happened in the last 10 years and why natural gas is more competitive. So technology has come along, and if you're a believer in creative destruction, these economic theories. So we started horizontal drilling, we started developing our shale plays, and we can't develop oil without making a boatload of gas. And we have broken open some new gas plays that are just phenomenal throughout the US. Does this make coal less competitive? Yes. Will lowering the severance tax actually raise demand for coal? No. Because coal goes into a regulated utility market. On the electrical side, we export almost all of this tax to someone out of state through their electric bill. So I have more coal miners in my district, or as many, probably less than the bringers of the bill, but certainly a lot of people that work at these mines. However, I want everybody to think about how the industry has changed the entire energy industry, where our demand points are, why the competition is the way it is. This is a technology and a demand problem, not a tax problem. Thank you.
Representative Greer.
Thank you, members, and I'm sorry to get back up again, but something I've neglected to point out too is, okay, there's a lot of, and I'll just say there's a lot of political noise regarding the use of coal. I'll just leave it at that, okay? But the simple driver has been natural gas prices on demand. If natural gas prices go down, coal usage goes down. Natural prices go up, we see coal go up, okay? Now, I for one believe that steady, reliable electricity with baseload is actually the best and cleanest way to provide electricity rather than ramping up, ramping down, my opinion, okay? So if you are making coal more competitive or at least keeping it competitive with natural gas, what you're doing is you're helping that resource continue because more coal sold, even with a lower tax, generates more tax overall. So this factor between gas prices, okay, and not all the gas that's used around this country comes from Wyoming. It comes, matter of fact, most of it comes from somewhere else. So just keep that in mind as you debate this policy. I'm in favor of the bill. Still think I want to hijack it and do it for long-term reclamation, but we'll do that later.
Representative Ottman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to thought, I really appreciate all of this information because as we're going through things, we hear about markets going up, markets going down, trends. When we present certain things and want taxes, then certain things seem to be low. And when we don't, they seem to be high. But one of the things I believe that we have done is put money into the defense of the state's office for litigation for this industry. And until we're able to get some of those things finalized and to open those markets, because we do have a good product, but we're not able to service all the markets that we may be able to because of a lot of things. So I believe that this would just help them have that time on and for the bill.
Further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Knapp?
Before we take that vote, I'd just like to remind the body, take the politics out of it. You know, natural gas prices are where they are because of lack of regulation. The same regulations got hit for coal. We're going to go through to natural gas, and that administration ended, and that stopped that process. They had planned on doing the same thing to natural gas as they did to coal. This is about fairness. You know, I've heard members get up before and talk about exemptions, tax exemptions for the industry that hauls the coal to where it goes, to stay not only competitive, but to stay in business. All we're asking for is our energy industries to be taxed equally and fairly by the state. Thank you.
Representative Hallinan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd make one final point, and then I'll call the question myself. That would be that I have a balance statement from one of our major coal companies in Campbell County. And it says that they make about 99 cents on a ton of coal. So a $9 million cut in their tax might be a significant issue to their amount of profit that they make. And I think this is an investment in our coal businesses. And we're putting $400 million into the LSRA. This is a small investment in our major industry in the state. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And I call the
Question being called. All those in favor of Vice Chairman Larson's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 105 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 105 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Then Representative Washut.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Up here in our gallery, you see a group of young people and point of personal privilege.
I would have the privilege of the floor granted.
My apologies. Group of young people up here in the gallery in dapper red jackets. This is our Skills USA State Officer Team. Skills USA is all about career technical education. I'm a big supporter. We have with us today Julia Martins, Connor Maddox, Andrew Schleybaugh, Josiah Bartlett, Belle Maciel, and Dakota Connor. Let's give them a welcome to the House of Representatives.
welcome. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 137. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
House Bill 137, sponsored by Representative Western. State land exchanges, public notice, an act relating to state lands.
You've heard the reading.
Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 137, State Land Exchanges, Public Notice, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Eklund, Fortner, Western, Wharf, Winter. Noes, Representatives Heiner, Larson, Dan. Excused, Representative Blackburn. Representative Eklund, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Eklund?
Madam Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with recommendation that House Bill 137 do pass, and I turn the explanation over to the bill sponsor.
Representative Western.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I bring you House Bill 137, and succinctly explain, the problem it solves is this. When a land exchange is proposed by a private landowner, they are proposing to swap their private land for state land. And the process for that is pretty lengthy. It goes through a lot of evaluations and it takes up a lot of time. The problem with it, with this current process is this. The public doesn't know that this application is pending for about 18 months. And so it's a problem because this is trust land that is owned by the state, by all of us. And if there are transactions going on with land that is owned by the state, the public needs to be included from square one. The analogy I use is this. Imagine if a bill goes through the legislative process, starts out in a committee, goes through the readings, et cetera, to the chamber down the hall, and only at third reading down the hall is the public finally aware and allowed to weigh in. So what this bill does to solve the problem is this. It simply states that the OSLI has to disclose that an application has been submitted within 30 days of the application being submitted. And so this is done as a transparency measure to ensure that we are all on the same page. I stand for any questions. If there are no questions, I call for the question.
Further discussion? Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this concept, really. I'd just like a clarification on where it's posted, how it's posted. Or how does the information get out?
Representative Western.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. To the good representative from this fine town, that will be on the website for OSLI.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative Eklund's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 137 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 137 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 147. The reading clerk will read the bill. Oh, okay. All right. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 72. Will the reading clerk read the bill?
House Bill 72, sponsored by Representative Summers. Hunting license, application funds, an act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 72, hunting license, application funds. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Flitner, Knapp, Newsom, Sweeney, Williams, Winter. Noes, Representative Haroldson and Jennings. Representative Flitner, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Flitner?
Madam Chairman, thank you. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 72 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee amendment, and with an explanation of both, I hand it off to the good representative from House District 20.
Majority Floor Leader Summers.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Members of the House, I bring you House Bill 72, hunting license application funds, and ask for your favorable favorable consideration. There is an increasing need for wildlife habitat improvement, hunter access, and wildlife crossing projects. House Bill 72 allows an unsuccessful hunter the opportunity to donate his submitted fees to either the Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund or the access account that was created last session with an increase in the conservation fees. Donations are just that, entirely voluntary. And so what this bill originally did before the standing committee amendment, you could donate all of your fee or none of your fee. And what the standing committee amendment does is make it a little more nuanced. And so it says the department shall allow the applicant to contribute the entire amount of the fee or to select a portion of the fee to contribute to specified whole dollar amounts of $20, $50, $100, or other amounts specified by the department not to exceed the amount of the fee. And so, Madam Chairman, I would stand for questions on the standing committee amendment. If there are none, I would call for question.
The question being called, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Question be, Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not in the room to sense the tone of the room, but I'm assuming you guys are all excited about this. But I have just a friendly suggestion or amendment on page 2, line 10. If we could broaden that instead of 1 to allow the applicant to choose either or both. So maybe they want to take their fees and split them among these 2 programs. And just a plug for the Access Yes program, super awesome, allows for walk and hunting and fishing and hunter management areas. So it's something that not everyone is aware of, but does a lot to provide public access. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sherwood. I'm sure that would make a great third reading amendment to this bill. Sensing that you're ready to vote, question being called, all those in favor of Representative Flintner's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Bill 172 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 72 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our Majority Floor Leader Summers.
Madam Chairman, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, there's one bill that hasn't been read in, which is the last bill. So we have to rise and report and then read the bill in and then come back into Committee of the Whole. And so I would move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The Committee of the Whole, you have to.
Reading clerk will read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had on consideration bills on general file, beg leave to report as follows. House Bill 136, do pass. House Bill 44, do pass. House Bill 64, do pass amended. House Bill 85, do pass amended. House Bill 71, do pass. House Bill 105, do pass. House Bill 137, do pass. House Bill 72, do pass amended. Representative Newsom, Chairman.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The report is adopted. Thank you very much, Representative Newman. You'll get to applaud her when she gets done with the last bill. Committee reports.
House Bill 147, sponsored by Speaker Barlow. Cash-based budget development, an act relating to state budgeting. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 3 Revenue, to whom was referred House Bill 147, cash-based budget development, respectfully reports same back to the House with a recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Gray, Harshman, Henderson, Jennings, Yin. Noes, Representatives Hallinan, Roscoe, Sweeney. Representative Harshman, Chairman. . There's one more report. Hold on.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Chairman Newsom.
All right, rolling on. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 147. Will the reading clerk read the bill?
House Bill 147, sponsored by Speaker Barlow. Cash-based budget development, an act relating to state budgeting. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3 revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 147, cash-based budgeting, budget development, respectful report, same back to the House, with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Gray, Harshman, Henderson, Jennings, Yin. Noes, Representatives Hallinan, Roscoe, Sweeney. Representative Harshman, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Harshman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 142 do pass. That's what I said, 147 do pass. And I further move the adoption of the Standing Committee Amendment, and the Standing Committee Amendment really moves the bill to annual budgeting, cash budgeting. We have a couple more readings to look at this, but so anyway, if there's no discussion on that Standing Committee Amendment, I would call for the question on that, Madam Chair.
Question being called. All those, you have heard the motion on this for the Standing Committee Amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Standing Committee Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I'd move the explanation of the bill over to the good speaker.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So first of all, I thank you for the opportunity. It was the last bill on introduction. And even though I didn't get to finish my explanation, because we have those time limit things, and the good chairman who was in the chair at that time was strict. Thank you for that. And I thank the Majority Floor Leader, and I thank the work that the Chairman of Revenue and the Revenue Committee did on it last night to try to get this concept to the floor for this body to continue the work on it. As you know, 2014, I said before, this was something that I said, this is possible. This is possible. And I think we're at a unique spot right now in Wyoming where we can actually transition from a budget that's based on forecast, betting on the come, if you will, to a budget that's actually based on cash in the bank. We're in a unique place. Our general revenues have become smaller over time because of some of the cyclic challenges we've had in revenues and the cuts that we've made, so we're down here. And then all of a sudden we have an infusion of more revenue that meets that. So we're at a unique spot where we can actually transition. And what does this do? This takes the volatility of our revenue and separates it from the policies that we actually value. Because right now what we have is a system that chases the revenues. The programs chase the revenues. Let's separate ourselves from a year for a year at least by that. 2 would be ideal. The good chairman and the Revenue Committee said, let's just go to single year budgeting. I respect that's another policy discussion that fits with this cash budget. So there's 2 policy discussions we get to have in this, and I think they're both value, and I think they both bring something to the table that this body, and if it beyond this, the entire legislature gets to go through. So members, we can go answer questions and go into we can go into the details of the bill itself, and I'm pleased to do that. Remembering that we have third reading amendments, and I believe there's 40 or 50 of them now that are in the queue. And that's fine, that's what we do. So the bill really is about asking the chief executive to base the budget on real money, and then we fund it on real money. That's how I'm fortunate enough to operate my business. It's taken me 20 years as a sole proprietor to get to that point. You know, if we have another drought year, I'll have exhausted it all. Exhausted it all. But the reason I did that was for the drought years, for the markets that change, for that. So I'm not saying that, I hope many of us are able to do that. I know it's a challenge. Many people do live paycheck to paycheck. But we're in a unique place where we can actually transition and give stability to those programs. Let's recall what we change when we change. We have general fund fluctuations, the big five: Department of Health, Department of Corrections, University of Wyoming, community colleges, local government. That's the big five where general funds go. So if you want to impact, we want to change things, where did the cuts come from when we had our last challenges? Where did they come from the time before that? And where did they come from 2008 and 9? They came from those. We want to build better stability into the things that we value in our state, the programs we value. This is one way to approach it. And I respectfully suggest right now, it's the only one we have on the table. So I'd ask you to move it forward, and I'd be glad to stand for questions. Madam Chairman.
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, and to the sponsor of the bill, I just want to make sure I understand the big picture of what's going on in this. It's, if I understand it right, with the standing committee amendment, this means that we will not have a biennial budget anymore. We'll have an annual budget. Every session will be a budget session. And then what we're going to do is make sure that before we appropriate the money, that the money's in the bank. And to fund the transition, does that mean that we spend the LSRA down to make it work? I mean, conceptually, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what this bill does. If that's accurate, the next question is on this whole stability idea. If we go from a biennial budget to an annual budget, then are we really achieving the value of stability? Because the agencies, for example, will not know what their budget is, 18 months in advance or 2 years in advance. They'll only know it at most 12 months in advance, I guess. So does that achieve the goal of stability? Thank you.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a quick question in regards to the constitutionality of this. What does that look like? Kind of a follow-up from the good previous speaker here. What does that look like as far as how we adjust our schedules? I know that there's been other proposals here to take away the introductory votes and that kind of stuff, and how those things go fluid through here. So just a little bit more clarification on that. I'd appreciate it.
Representative Connolly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I too, just big questions. This isn't the first time that we have talked about budgeting differently. We've talked about zero-based budgeting, cash-based budgeting. If I remember correctly, the cash-based budgeting kind of discussion came about when we had established the LISRA, but it really started to grow. Right? And so we had money out there. And one of the questions was, should we let it grow so that we can do cash-based budgeting? So that we had enough money in the LISRA for a year or two. And we actually did talk about the year or two at one point. But the concern in part was about the LISRA literally making no interest. And we had lots of money. $1 billion+, right? Making no interest on it. And that was pretty foolish on our part. So we changed the investment strategy for the LISRA in order to be able to get more returns. So my big question is about where the money is, and I think it's going to be in the LISRA, that we have a more liberal, if you want to call it, investment strategy so that we can get more returns. But still, does that mean that we need to have the cash available to pay our monthly bills and decreasing the interest that we have been so honestly interested in increasing over the past couple of years?
Representative Banks.
Madam Chairperson, thank you. Just a real quick question for Mr. Speaker. We have seen reports about the audit being late the last 3 years. Will that tardiness impact how the cash-based budgeting would work, or the inverse? Thank you.
Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. So one thing the good speaker did not bring up that I want to bring up at this point is what this says. I mean, it's good for us to have this policy discussion, and I'm all in for that, and I'm very much for this concept. But one of the things that the good speaker didn't bring up that I think is very important is what this bill says to the citizens of Wyoming. It says that we will begin to live within our means the same as they have to do. And so I think not only is there a policy question that has to be discussed, keep in the back of your mind that the people that are watching us, they come down here and they see how we do our budgeting and how we spend, and I don't know, sometimes like drunken sailors, no offense to the sailors, but they at least sober up. And so this would move us to a place where we begin to live and begin to spend the same way that all those people out there in this good state are having to do. They live within their means. And we also ought to do that. So on and for this bill. Thank you.
Further discussion, Speaker Barlow? Oh, Speaker Harshman. Former Speaker Harshman.
Former, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions to answer. The good representative from Laramie County asked about constitutional provisions on the 60 days over 2 years. Doesn't get affected by this bill. The Constitution basically says we can't meet more than 40 days in one session, and that these even years have to have 2/3, what I've described as wholly undemocratic, unholy supermajority votes to even represent your constituents and introduce a bill. Anyway. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that grace. But that's a whole different issue. And I think if we, go to this, that'll be an issue. And recall, the legislature has been moving to more of a 30-30 day. In my 20 years, this will be one of the few times we've done 40 and 20. We've always gone like 35 and left 25 days. And COVID, we burned 8 days online last year, and then we had to come in 32 days to get our work done. So we only had 20 days left. So if we go past midnight tonight, Saturday counts as now, and we're going to burn another. Anyway, just saying. So I'll keep talking. But it's not affected by that. Nothing in this bill says that. I wanted to. I'll tell you, the first draft of the old amendment, you bet. I had it in there, and I thought, okay, easy horse, back off on that. So I backed off on that. The other question, I think, was about where does the money come from? Well, it's going to come from the LSRA. That's why I felt strongly we had to amend this bill to annual budgeting. We just don't have enough money. I think the risk would be too great in our volatile revenue to totally drain all of our savings to do this. We can do annual, though, and part of that to prop up the LSRA takes the 1% statutory, which is about $100 million a year, and puts it into this for the next few years to bolster the LSRA. And the LSRA, just looking at your goldenrod, page 3, the end of this budget and the end of the current budget we're in, 21-22, and the end of the 23-24, we're going to go over $2 billion. Just not even doing anything. But this bill takes another $300 million-ish in the next couple of years and puts it in the LSRA. And then there's a significant risk to schools. This House of Representatives, and I'll say the good chairman of Minerals, who was on that conference committee back in the day when we were in the temporary House chambers over in the Jonah building, it saved chaos in this state. Using the LSRA to backstop education, the most volatile service of government we have in this state, because it's all based on minerals primarily. I mean, it's been incredible. So that is a really important policy that was enacted by the legislature. And we don't want to jeopardize that. So this amendment lowers that 500 down to like 100. So the LSRA is the hardest working account in government. We got a lot of things attached to that, and we're cash flowing. So to say this is easy, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of work into this. It's going to change the state auditor's office. And let me just say what we're doing now is not horrible. And And, you know, it was said, I remember a Democratic governor in my first session from Thermopolis, was elected 2 terms, very popular governor, said, the legislature's spending like drunken sailors. So that's an old saying around here, and I appreciate he was from the Democratic Party, said to us Republicans. But I'll just say this about Wyoming. I'll say we live within our means. We're like the only state that doesn't owe anybody a penny. My first term in the legislature, we'd bonded for the new prison in Torrington, paid it off. Bam, we got rich, we paid it off early. We don't owe anybody anything. It's incredible what we've been able to do. And so ease up on ourselves here and the elected citizens from around the state who have come here before us to work on this. We've done a great job under some very challenging times. Cash budgeting provides some stability, but also can provide some instability as well. We need to kind of go through this and talk about it. I think it's worth talking about, though. And I think it's worth having this discussion. So I appreciate the good speaker bringing this. I think the bill's in pretty good shape. Wyoming is, we budget every year now. You guys who've been here, we're bringing budget bills every year. And I think I got some stats here, 19 states like us who budget biannually but meet annually. And then 31 of our states actually budget annually. And there's still a couple states, you know, North Dakota, Montana, some of these western states, Texas, they just meet every other year still. Like we used to up until 1974. We just used to meet every other year. And so that's that part of it. So I think, you know, this is really, I think, a great concept to talk about. I'm trying to get us into Saturday, and I'm going to stop. But I appreciate the talk. But I'll just say this. We've done a great job. We got cash in the bank. We don't owe anybody anything. We paid our way. I don't know if any of you went to The Economist last night, famous economist. Met with him. He said, the thing we got going in Wyoming, there's no personal income tax. That's paid by minerals. Part of that we just lowered. That's an income tax on minerals. And he says, you have the greatest education system in the United States. He says, those are your 2 big bonuses for this state going forward. And he studied every state. So be really proud of what we've done. This might be the next little game changer for us. And hopefully provide a little more stability. So urge your aye vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And so I remember 10 years ago, the last boom, this was the dream, right? That we weren't going to be on a Craig report and forecast our revenues. And somewhere about, I think, 2015, 2016, with a big hit, that dream went away. And we kind of acknowledged in this body it was not realistic and we weren't going to get to that point, right? We couldn't inflation-proof our funds. And so while I think this is a great idea, I mean, I have, it's a lot of concerns here, right? This is the biggest change in 40 years to how we budget and how we do revenues. And the bill was asked for 5 days before session started, right? And I mean, if we're going to make this kind of change, it's a couple of years. It's an interim committee. It's studying. You just don't flip in a year. And if we are going to flip in a year, we should have had maybe some talks day one that, get some propulsion behind this. Because our budget right now, on 3rd reading with amendments already in, I mean, we're not liquid enough, I believe, right, to make this change by 2023 without a whole lot more kind of time and effort and building. If we're going to, flip the LSRA to make that our cash account, I guess I just have some concerns, and I'm not even against the idea. It's probably the right idea. I'm just kind of maybe checking with the sponsor about, do we really realistically believe we can make this step in the next 2 years without some more planning than, talking about this on 3rd reading of the budget the same day? Because we haven't, in my opinion, corresponded our budget this year to be, as liquid as possible and put stuff in LSRA in preparation for this, what I will say is a very significant jump and maybe a very necessary jump. But this is a pretty huge step from the way we've done Craig since I think when was I born? 82, 83, right? We've been doing it a certain way for a very long time. And to say a week before session, let's redo the way we do all of these things, don't we need some more time to prep this? And I guess my ultimate question is, can we move the dates back a couple of years and really work on a budget and kind of 2 years to be able to make this jump, assuming revenues stay where we think they're going to stay?
Representative Stith.
Madam Chairman, I have a real specific question, just so I understand what the bill does and does not do. On page 4, as amended, I believe as it now reads, line 9, page 4, beginning July 1, 2023, the total recommended annual appropriations from the general fund under this subsection for any annual one-year fiscal budget period shall not exceed the total revenue to the general fund and budget reserve account attributable to the immediately preceding 3 fiscal years as determined by the state auditor multiplied by 1/3. I think that's how it reads as amended. Okay. My question is this: the title of the bill is Cash-Based Budget Amendment, which I like the idea that you'd only spend money that you know you have in the bank, but it seems like page 4 doesn't do that. It seems like what page 4 does is replaces one estimate with another estimate. And to use a real specific example, let's imagine you have 2 really good years, and in year 1 you make $125, and in year 2 you make $125, but in year 3 you've got $50 coming in. Okay? So the average of those, because it adds up to 300, the average is 100. And so the estimate during this year when you're only making $50, this formula would say that you should budget $100. And so that's my question. Wouldn't this require us to budget $100 in a year when we know we're only making $50? It just seems like, so that's how it reads to me, and I just appreciate some explanation. Thank you.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I'll walk through some of these questions and I'll get to hopefully I get to them all. By the way, we're only going to take an hour lunch, so you decide when we start that, just saying. I think that's what the majority floor leader told me. So this concept has actually been talked about, as I said, by me and brought forth by me in numerous budget amendments and bills since 2014. Now, maybe that doesn't include the entirety of the body, but it's certainly not something new. As for, I want to talk about the opportunity cost that was talked about. If we're going to use that LISRA, that big account, what are the opportunity costs, lost opportunities there? I have that document. I will forward that out to you tonight. It is, in my recollection, it's $11 million out of $2.8 billion. $11 million because of the adjustments we've made in the last several years about how we can invest our LISRA. So there is loss, there is a cost to doing this, but is approximately $11 million over $2.8 billion to actually address a stability issue when we change revenues hundreds of millions of dollars. Is that something we're willing to, and I would call it an investment, to gain stability, and a gain in stability. Annual versus biannual. That is, as I mentioned, that is a policy discussion that the Good Revenue Committee brought to this bill. I absolutely agree. We do not have enough cash on hand to make a transition now. And the bill as it originally was 1 year, and then we keep building until we get to the succeeding biennium, not the one coming up, the succeeding biennium. And if things work out just as forecast, we would be there. We would be there with those other adjustments into how we deposit funds, i.e. less funds going into permanent accounts, more funds being kept liquid, or either in the LISRA or the budget reserve account. The reason I mentioned this bill, the guts of this bill, if you will, where all those transfers are not as, and I think I'd like the opportunity to continue to work this, because as you know, our budget bill has a lot of changes in it too. There were amendments on second reading. There's probably likely some amendments on third reading. I haven't got through them all yet, that change where reserves go. Do they go into the permanent fund? Do they go in the reserve account? Do they go in the LISRA? That changes this our ability to accomplish this. And that's one of the reasons the good chairman of revenue said, let's have that other policy discussion about annual budgets. The annual budget versus biannual budget as far as a practical matter for the executive branch and for this body, well, our appropriations committees meets every year. And I can assure you, when we're cycling down, the budgets they bring us touch every agency. And when we're in that incline, they touch nearly every agency. That's what we're doing right now with changes in the budget, with our budget amendments and with the budget amendments from the other end of the hallway. We're touching all this. This happens to be a budget session, but I've been here twice during a budget session when we were a non-budget session when we had just as much budget work going on. Just as much for both reasons, one going down and one on the increase. The constitutional, I think that's all. There was a question about, does this impact the way the treasurer and some of the reports and things, and I do not believe it does. Actually, I think it may tighten it up with the annual component. There was a discussion about zero-based budgeting versus cash-based, and they are very different things, at least in my understanding. A zero-based budget is an entity, an agency, or a business says, okay, what do we want to do in our business? What do we need to get there? What we do now is say, what are we doing now? What do we want to change? So we start from $100 and say, what do we want to do with that $100 differently? Zero means you start with zero and figure out, what do we need? Do we actually need 100? How do we build that building up? So those are two different things. The timeline, and I wasn't here when the LSRA was put into place and had those discussions about what to do and what not to do with those funds. But as I said, we're at a unique place. Our general fund obligations are at a place where they're smaller than they've been in a long time. We have some unanticipated income, i.e. federal government infusion, revenues from the industry that supports us so well, the commodity prices on energy. We're at a unique spot, again, just like we were in 2014 when I first brought this budget, or as a budget amendment. Now it's a bill. Now in the budget, you will see a little bit of piece in there that says, hey, let's do this and then let's study it some more. Because I didn't know if this bill was going to make it through. So if you don't want two horses in the race, which I've heard that's a valuable thing, having two horses in the race, we can have that discussion on the budget amendment. But the bill is still before us. I'd ask you for your favorable consideration. I think, and I appreciate the good chairman saying there's more to talk about here. I appreciate the good chairman of corporations getting up and saying there's more to understand and learn here. That's what this process is about. And if we set it back a year or two to continue to get it right, I think that's acceptable, because I do want to get it right. I do want to get it right. Because I believe this is something that would benefit all of us and benefit future legislators. Chasing the Craig, the value of the Craig, just like in 2020 when we had that May Craig, and you've heard the chairman of revenue, gave us a false place, put us in a false place. Since then, we have been flat. Our revenue has honestly been flat, but we chased it. We chased out of, and it affected our programs, it affected our communities, it affected the services that we believe are important. And now what are we doing? Through our budget amendments, we keep restoration, etc. So I'd ask your favorable consideration. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I would ask that the good speaker walk us through this bill so we know what it says. No one has told us what this says, other than we're going to cash-based budget. I think we need to go page by page, section by section, and explain it, because who's read this whole bill and understands what it says? Let us know. I mean, that's what first reading is for, not just to get the idea out. Let's walk through the bill.
Speaker Barlow. Chairman Harshman.
Members, if you have your bill, the amendment really is the bill now, but I can take you through it quickly. The first one is where it says cash-based budgeting. The amendment puts annual cash-based budgeting and then providing for annual budget development. Most of that's conforming on the title of the bill. Then on page 1, lines 12 through 14 are deleted. because we're not going to create that new subsection. Flipping over to page 2, this is current statute on how we direct the governor to develop the budget. You can see on line 10 of your amendment on page 2, instead of 2 years, it says fiscal period. Nothing else changed on that page 2. Go over to page 3. Then it says this paragraph is repealed effective July 1st, and I think the amendment says 2024. Okay, so that the way that the governor is required, that we require him to develop budgets will start to change. Then flip over to page 4. On line 6, under that paragraph B, it talks about this paragraph then is repealed effective July 2024. I think it says in your amendment. So we'll move on to this new paragraph, the way the chief executive then will develop budgets in Romanet 7. So the total recommended annual appropriations from the general fund for any one fiscal year will be developed in this such a way that it'll take the previous 3 years and then divide that by a third. So you'll take that whole amount and divide that, so you're going to get an average of 3 years for 1 year expenditures. Okay, you'll bring that forward to the legislature. And then on page 5, all that language in the bill, this talks about the LSRA. Go down to line 17. This is the backstop for education. It moves it down on line 17 from 500 million. The amendment takes it now to 100 million, is where the LSRA, the hardest working count in Wyoming, maybe in America, will continue that backstop until it reaches 100 million. Starting on the bottom of page 5, this is talking about FMRs and the flow of FMRs and SIPA accounts. It was, the original bill was trying to sweep some of that cash into the LSRA. That has all been deleted. So starting on the bottom of page 5, line 20 and 21 are deleted. All of page 6 are deleted. And then going through page 7 through line 7 is all deleted. Okay, now when you go, now another section of the statute, those were FMR flows. Now we're going to another section of the statute on page 7, spending policy amounts. We start to add a little liquidity in the reserve accounts, and you can see it's raised on page 8. The reserve account tipping point, instead of 150%, is raised to 300% on the Wyoming Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. And then line 12 through 22 are all deleted. Those aren't necessary after that change. Okay, and then keep going. These are distributions. Flipping over to page 9, this is the SIPA account was taken out of the budget in the original bill. That is all deleted. All of page 9 is deleted, so the SIPA account stays whole. Okay, flipping over to page 10, lines 1 through 10 are all deleted. Okay, where the money now really comes from to help fill up the LSRA begins on page 10. This stays in the bill. This is the statutory 1% severance distribution. Okay, and Madam Chair, this will start to flow now. Instead of, you can flip over to page 11, instead of that 2/3, 1/3 to the permanent accounts, there's language added on page 11, line 3, to the legislative stabilization reserve account. So that's where that 100 million-ish a year on that 1% statutory severance will flow. And that occurs for just, I think, 3 or 4 years through 26. 4 years, 23 through 26. The rest of page 11 is all deleted. Lines 5 through 23 are all deleted. And then the last part of that amendment, once it's starting in 2027, That 1% statutory will go back to permanent savings. And it'll be 50-50, common school, permanent land, and then permanent mineral trust fund. Okay, and then page 12, Madam Chair, members, is pretty much stays intact. This is the tipping point on the reserve account for the common school account. The only change is at the very bottom. We mimic what we do in the permanent fund, and that carries over on line 23, page 12, to line 1, page 13, moves from 150 to 300%. Finally, the amendment, and I'm kind of going off a bill that I've written this stuff into, but finally, the amendment on, I just want to get my stuff ready here, on 13, section 3, says a joint revenue, but we added appropriations into that as well. It's going to be an appropriations revenue project to review all this statutory work that needs to be done, statutory revisions. That's 13, line 12. And then finally, it says in that language that this will not happen until there's $2 billion in the LSRA. And then I think it adds Appropriations Committee in there, the bottom of that amendment, page 13, line 13. So I think that I cover all the amendment. Says it again in there about on page 14, lines 12 through 13, till we get $2 billion in the LSRA. And so that's the plan, and I think we can get there with that 1% and the current projections for tips as on page 3 of your goldenrod. So that was quick. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Further discussion? Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you. So I would request that over the weekend, we have LSO put this in a substitute bill so we can have a clean bill in front of us and we can know what it says and digest it a little better.
Speaker Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I'll do my best to accomplish the request of the Appropriations Chairman. So members, I think I want to clarify or just expound a little bit and highlight a couple things that the good Chairman of Revenue mentioned as he walked through the changes that are in the Standing Committee Amendment that was adopted. Basically, they're pushing it off 2 years. They're pushing it off the initiation of this 2 years. Section 3 has the committees, the legislature involved, how to do that. They are initiating and they're also setting a floor. We initiate this when we have adequate funds in the LISRA. All those changes that were made in the middle, the deletions, the changes of 150% to 300%, those are all the levers we have. Those are, and some of these folks, the good chairman of appropriations, the good chairman of revenue, they know those levers. Our staff gave me as many options as they could, and now we're starting to whittle them down. Which levers make the most sense? Where do we do the least amount of change? How do we massage this to get the right fit, the right place, the right direction? And that's the process we do. We just keep working on it, keep working on it. So as to there was a question from the good gentleman from Rock Springs asked about, am I understanding it right? We're averaging 3 years. That's just our guidance to the executive branch. Ultimately, what do? We appropriate, and the cash that's on hand, and if we need to go into some other reserves or we think there's other things that we need to bring in, that's our prerogative. We do that now. We are doing that now in what we're going to take up on third reading. But we're trying to have a baseline for the executive branch to put forth, say, hey, stay within these bounds and bring us a budget in these bounds. They're doing that now. That's being done now, but it's being done on estimates. What we're going to base it on is actual revenues over 3 years, 1/3 of 3 years, or the 1/3 of the 3-year total. And then my hope is at the same time, we'll have the cash in the bank, the 1/3 available to actually implement the policy. Implement the policy. So, Madam Chairman, if there's no further questions, I would call for the question and thank you.
Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Harshman's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 147 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. House Bill 147 has passed the Committee of the Whole. Majority Floor Leader Summers.
Madam Chairman, I move that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. That motion has passed.
Reading clerk, please read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 147, do pass amended. Representative Newsom, Chairman.
Thank you. Madam Chairman.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The report is adopted. Thank you. Chairman Newsom. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand in recess until 1:20. 1 hour.
Committee announcements. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee number 7, corporations, will meet in 5 minutes in EO5, and we will probably only hear Senate File 27, dissolution of county boards, and Senate File 49, repeal of specified state boards and commissions, possibly Senate File 74, water and sewer districts, if time.
Any other message? Chairman Paxton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet in 10 minutes in Extension 3 to consider one bill, Senate File 13, absenteeism and truancy. Let's see, I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was, so we'll leave it.
Thank you. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Appropriations Committee will meet in 3:01 to hear, as far as we can get, Senate File 57, 59. No, we did those this morning. So we won't meet till Monday, and we'll meet at noon and review Senate amendments to the House Bill 1, House Bill 2.
Further announcements, further announcements. Further announcements, members, my understanding there's 46 budget amendments on third reading, 46. With that, the House will stand in recess until 1:20.